I am going to begin by expressing my fear at this very moment. Although I know perfectly well what I'm about to share here, it does not take away the fact that I did not practice with this many people listening before. I have always been scared of public speaking. It seems so simple, and yet it is so hard to do confidently. I thought it was about perfection, about performance. But I've learned that it is so much more, and it is so much simpler than that. So, what if I told you that the true obstacle in public speaking is in the audience? It's you. To begin, let me take you back to one of my most impactful experiences in this field. This was about 7 years ago. I remember it so vividly. I had a whole 3 lines for a Christmas presentation at my school. I was so excited to be on stage like any little girl would. I said half a line before I realized I was in front of about 40 people, which it's not a big forum, it's a small forum. It was just parents, family, friends, and teachers. Either way, I froze. I forgot it all. I said sorry repeatedly, got backstage, asked for the lines, said them wrong, said sorry again, and ended up not even presenting my line. More than my first time speaking in public, that was the first time I was truly scared of it. Before that, I would just say what I needed to in front of people without giving it much thought. But that day, I experienced the way of true judgment. It wasn't even a tough crowd, it was just a regular school presentation. But I found myself assuming what people were thinking. It sounds silly, doesn't it, assuming what people think? Yeah, we do it all the time. We don't know what others think of us, but we create scenarios in our minds, dragging ourselves deeper into a hole of self-judgment. I want you to look around to the person on your right. What are they thinking? They're probably thinking that you chose the wrong outfit, that you should sit a different way, that you should have taken a shower before coming in. They think you came to this event just because you have nothing else to do. No. Now notice how quickly your mind went to self-doubt. The truth is, they're likely thinking about themselves just like you are. We don't know what others think of us, but we create scenarios in our minds to drag ourselves deeper into a hole of self-judgment. Everything else is just fears that we associate with our environment. For example, how many of you have here been bitten by a snake? How many of you would probably scream or quickly get away if you saw a snake? Why? The only way for you knowing that a snake could bite you is because someone told you. If you haven't been exposed to it, there's no way of knowing. So then, that is how fear works. Fear is a caution against a possible danger or threat. That is the exact definition. That is what makes the definition of public speaking fear of public speaking so much confusing, because then what is the threat? What is in danger? The only thing in danger when you're handling a conversation is your own perception of yourself. We don't know what others think of us, but we focus on what they are trying to infer from us. That is why we are scared. That is why you must focus on the delivery of your message, always focusing on what you have to say instead of others' perception of you. Now, it may be a little complicated to understand this concept, but we all the time are thinking about how this can change us and how we present based on what other people think of us. Now, how do we clear those voices in our heads? Even world leaders face this process. Kamala Harris once gave a very wise advice to a girl asking for guidance. She said, if you're on the Titanic, right, and you're on the Titanic and you know the ship is about to sink, are you going to worry about how you look or sound? No. Because the most important thing is that everyone knows what you know because they need to know what you know. Now, it may sound a little confusing, but the main focus of her advice is to shift your attention into what matters. When you're delivering your speech, focus on giving your speech, saying what matters, what you are going to present to your public. It is a bit complicated to understand this concept for yourself. Sometimes you try to think of others' opinions instead of what you're trying to say. That is why you must solely focus on your purpose. Now, I am not inferring that you shouldn't care what other people think. It is important to value other people's opinions. But it is also important to identify which opinions are the ones that deserve a place in your mind. The fear we have of public speaking usually directly relates to the direct idea we have of public speaking, of its definition. Giving a speech in front of a crowd. And although it is a common assumption, public speaking does not always match that definition. I want to address the true definition of public speaking. The Merriam-Webster dictionary includes two definitions. One, the act or process of making speeches in public. And two, the art of effective oral communication with an audience. I like to focus on the second definition, which identifies public speaking as an art. It goes beyond making speeches. It's about connecting, inspiring, and communicating effectively. Communicating is your key objective. If you can transmit your message to at least one individual, you are already accomplishing your sole objective. Whether if you are presenting in class, pitching ideas to your boss, convincing your parents to let you go to a party, or even gossiping about anything with a friend, if you can transmit your message clearly and you can communicate effectively, you are already public speaking. Now, what happens when you're not affected? The previous examples I gave you include you, and they directly impact you. So why should you communicate? If you're not affected, would you still speak up? Sometimes speaking your mind can end in you saying something wrong, or maybe regretting what you said. So, some tend to stay in the comfort of silence. You have to find an in-between. An in-between into not saying anything and saying too much, because there is a thin line. But you will regret more. Staying silent from preventing you to getting in any trouble than saying something wrong when standing up to your ideas. I like to explain this theory with a line. You have probably seen this example before, and you've heard the expression, I've had my ups and downs. Now, let me extend that idea into experiences. Let's say you try something different. You are willing to risk getting hurt, falling, or letting yourself down for trying something different. So, you're willing to risk strong moments of pain and suffering for stronger moments of joy and happiness. The famous ups and downs. Now, some may relate more to this line. You're not willing to try anything different because you don't want to hurt yourself. But sometimes you need to be able to open your heart, even if it means someone might break it, to love. And in this example to our previous line, loving would be your up, and having your heart broken would be your down. Now let me extend that same example with a different idea. Let's say a classmate of yours is getting bullied in class. You have two options. You can either say something back, probably get a hurtful comment back from the bullies, even end up in the dean's office because you said something hurtful again. Or you could just sit in silence, watching your classmate getting hurt. What if you had an idea that could revolutionize the way society views a certain topic? Would you say something? Maybe your idea can be controversial, or maybe most people will disagree. But one person, as long as you have impacted a single person, you have already changed the course of the world. We tend to complain about how things are in our country, city, school, or community. But what have we done about it? You see, trying is what matters. Risking failure is what creates change. Thomas Edison has a famous quote that states, "I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention of 1,000 steps." Change does not happen overnight. It takes time. And maybe the result won't be as impactful as the invention of the light bulb. But nothing will happen if you don't try. That is for sure. Throughout history, there have been many great speakers and great speeches that have impacted us. For example, Nelson Mandela, JFK, Malala, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., for example, gave one of the most influential speeches in history. He changed the course of life of a whole race. And although it took, and it was a joint effort, words like the ones he gave were crucial in awakening others' voices. Change did not happen overnight, but it takes initiative to change the world. I challenge you to speak up today. When they're in front of one person or 1,000, you have a strong power in your words. You have to give them power, and you can only do so by raising your voice. Thank you.